Welcome. Well, all the important people are here, I can see. So thank you for coming. I am Diana Folsom with the Gilcrease Museum. Halito, I should say. I'm also a member of the Choctaw tribe, and you can see my t-shirt. I'm trying to advertise that as well. It is my great honor and pleasure to be here presenting this project, which is so close to my heart. It has my favorite people working with us on this project to represent multiple perspectives of just fantastic Mississippian cultural pottery that we are cataloging and imaging. We also created software in order to allow distance cataloging and review. We're working with a fantastic team of archaeologists and native artists and a beautiful advisor for the cataloging, Holly Witchey. So I'll just mention that this will not be a very techy presentation, but we can take those questions at the end if you want. I do have a chart of the software architecture, which is, and by the way, the software is freely available for you to pick up and use if you'd like to on Drupal. But it's at the end after the sort of thank you slide. So those of you that want to do tech talk, we'll do that after the thank you slide. So, all right. The project itself, to describe it, it's 3,500 ceramic vessels in our Gilcrease Museum collection. Had been sitting in the back room, I guess you'd say, for 40 years maybe? A long time. The most magnificent, how many, 60?
60 years.
60 years.
60, almost 70.
Almost 70 years, oh my goodness. Magnificent ceramic vessels, and they have been studied for at least 40 years by Dr. Ann Early from the University of Arkansas. So she is really probably the world's expert on this collection, on this fantastic work. So we had her help to set up our cataloging, her advice, and then she's also been reviewing our records. We created this software you can use from a distance, so she's been reviewing and adding information to our catalog records that we did not have, including site numbers and such, from a distance, and we're really excited that it's going so well. And then in addition, we wanted to bring in native voices and native perspectives. So we invited 4 native artists to add their voice by adding tags and search terms from the native artist perspective. So we have 2 native artists from the Caddo tribe, Jeri Redcorn, who's another national treasure. You'll see more of her work a little bit later, and Chase Earls, who is one of her proteges from the Caddo tribe, and then also Anita Fields from the Osage community, and Betty Getke from the Quapaw tribe. So the other additional ancillary purpose of this distance cataloging interface is to allow cultural representatives to review this material. So it's all put online, but in a password-protected site. It is not freely available to the public unless you request access and it's approved by the tribes. So one of the next projects we hope to do with different tribes, maybe the Quapaw, would be to let your tribal representatives review materials that are probably related to your tribe for discussion. So. And then all this new information goes back into our centralized database, the TMS Museum System database. So it's a pretty comprehensive system, and we're excited that it's become more and more useful than we ever imagined it to be. So. And here's some pictures of the native artists. That's Jeri Redcorn in the upper left with some of her beautiful ceramic vessels. The upper right is Anita Fields, the Osage artist, with some of her ceramic vessels. And then below on the bottom left is Chase Earls, again another Caddo ceramic artist, again one of Jeri's proteges. And bottom right is Betty Getke from the Quapaw tribe. And these are some of the main workers on this project. It just so happens that one of those women is in the room. Angela Cooper was a graduate assistant. She's in the upper right, who assisted with cataloging and imaging and measuring these ceramic vessels, and Jesse Novak from the University of Texas, or Texas State University, was the team leader on the project. And below we had an art student actually assist us with some of the imaging for one summer. So we had a wonderful team of diverse helpers. And I just tried to make a little slide to communicate the magic, I think, of this distance cataloging interface, that you can be anywhere. Look, you could be sitting on a rock somewhere, as long as you've got internet connectivity, and then you can connect in and help us with the cataloging. I'm going to show a little video that our team members, Naomi Franklin and Joseph Carragher, made to describe this distance cataloging interface and the project. This was made for actually the Caddo conference. I wrote festival mistakenly, Jeri, sorry about that. But for the Caddo conference in 2017. But I think it's really kind of perfect for this project, or for this day.
Hello everyone. We're sorry that we cannot attend the conference this year. This is a follow-up to the presentation that you saw 2 years ago, presented by Diana Folsom and Jesse Novak. The video presenters today will be Joseph Carragher and Naomi Franklin, part of the Gilcrease Museum Digital Collections team. Welcome to Gilcrease Museum's Collections Online website. Last May, Gilcrease Museum publicly launched with 20,000 items from the museum's vast art, archive, and anthropology collections. The Collections Online website is database-driven and constantly evolving with new content. We like to say that our Collections Online website is a living, breathing entity.
In a private section of the Collections Online website, we have created a software utility that is called the Distance Cataloguing Interface, or DCI. The DCI was created as part of an IMLS-funded project called Native Artists and Scholars Bring Past to Present, Multi-Disciplinary Perspectives for Mississippian Culture Pottery. This software is an open-source and password-protected cataloging interface that allows Gilcrease Museum to connect content experts, artists, cultural representatives, and other knowledgeable parties with the important items in the collection. Unlike the public portion of the Collections Online website, the DCI is only accessible to invited users. In this project, we focused on imaging and cataloging 3,500 ancient ceramic vessels. Based on this effort, archaeologists and native artists are in the process of adding new information into the DCI, contributing rich comments and tags that add a great deal of value to the records and understanding of these vessels. Jeri Redcorn and Chase Earls are two Caddo citizens participating in this project.
The DCI interface currently includes two fields, one for comma-separated tags and one for comments. Invited users are assigned custom groups of objects, and they are only able to work on the objects assigned to them. Once feedback is approved by an administrator, the data travels back to TMS, Gilcrease Museum's cataloging database, and are preserved with the catalog record for the long term. The DCI has been a great success for Gilcrease Museum, creating a model for smaller museums to gather expert and culturally relevant information concerning thousands of objects without having a large curatorial staff. We hope to continue to use and develop this software to connect our objects with people who know the most about them, especially tribal representatives.
As part of this IMLS project, 3,500 ceramic vessels were imaged and cataloged from the well-known Lemley collection. This diverse grouping includes prehistoric Caddo and Mississippian vessels representing an important selection of pottery from the Mississippian period in the southeastern region of the United States. Gilcrease Museum is steadfast in its commitment to the descendants of the creators of these incredible artifacts.
Today, Jeri Redcorn will discuss her project to add culturally relevant type names, which can be used in conjunction with existing terminology to describe these items from differing perspectives. Here, in the Digital Collections Department at Gilcrease Museum, we wish Jeri the best of luck in her project and offer our full support in this important effort. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful conference.
So a lot has come out of this project that we're excited about. And so next you're going to hear from Jeri Redcorn.
Qahad, Kumbakiha Banati, Kumbakiha Sene, Kumba Kia Karawadacho. That's hello in Caddo, and my name is Creek Woman or River Woman, and I have both Tsibiqua, which is my Potawatomi name, but it's also Creek. River Woman, Creek Woman. It is, I wish I knew a lot more language. I do not. But as I'm hearing, the theme of this conference just dovetails right with what I'm doing. And all of the speakers I have seen the themes are just right on. Decolonizing, taking back ownership of what we have. That is basically what my project is. It's a privilege to be here, and it's a privilege to speak. And I've seen friends out there, such as Ardina and Kevin Lewis, who I work with from NMAI, and then my very good roommate, Jeannie Whitehorse. I want to just give a little bit about my journey. Our Caddo people had lost the tradition, and that would be right. I think it was 1992. I visited a Red River Museum. Had completely lost and looked at all the Caddo pottery that was there, and I was sad. I was inspired, but I was sad about what we had lost, and in a way was trying to find my way to connect to these people. So I started researching Caddo pottery. I did this at the University of Oklahoma, Gilcrease Museum, and other places that had them. The University of Texas, the Archeological Resource Laboratory, has an amazing collection of Caddo pottery. The Arkansas Archeological Survey, has another amazing collection of Caddo pottery, and it really inspired me. And when I started making pottery, I think that there probably was one Native American person in the state of Oklahoma, and that made pottery, and that was Cherokee. And my name, it's flown me. What is her name? Anna Mitchell. Oh, okay, Annabelle Mitchell. Yes, a really good friend of mine. My senior moment, and I was the executive director of the Red Earth Festival in Oklahoma City, and for a couple of years. And the first year we had one potter from Oklahoma, and that was Annabelle Mitchell. And so she's been my mentor and inspiration in doing this. And could I do it? I didn't particularly think, in terms of art. I just thought in terms of educating myself and finding myself. And so when I began to do, thank you. So when I began to do this, I found out that I had friends who also appreciated Caddo pottery from the National Museum of the American Indians, and I was invited to be a part of the exhibit that opened in New York City, and it was called Born of Clay. And I was one of the artists, but we researched, or we chose Caddo pottery that was from the NMAI collection. Basically, and I'm going to say it, what is it? How do you say it? Hi. Okay, the Hi collection. And so my piece is in the back It's the shiny dark one. And you can see one in front. That's from, I think, the well, no, it isn't. I don't believe it is, but you have a lot of similar pottery, don't you, Anne, from that. And then the head pot back there is mine, too. Now, the one in the back was, that I just really felt honored to have made it and have it in there. This is a part of my, some of my firing pieces, and these are all black, so you'd either do all red or all black. And I call these Dahanati, the three sisters, corn, beans, and pumpkins, because, those were our crops, and we, just honoring the three women of the U.S. Supreme Court and the three women in the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Here, and these are just some of my pieces, so I'm going to just go through them. This one I call Bell Dance Red, and archaeologists call the design Hodges engraved, and this one is the only one I think that actually relates to caddos. The name does. But this is a Natchitoches bowl, or Nushtush is the way the Caddo pronounce it. And this is, I guess, a fairly good replication of what is found in Arkansas. And this is another, I think, one of the, a head pot, and I think this piece was basically from the Archaeological Survey collection, right?
It's in the Henderson State University
Henderson,
collection, Southwest Arkansas.
That's right. It's the Henderson
totally
State
object.
Yeah, it is very unique, and you can see a lot of Mississippian crossover. So, and this is these are two pieces. The panther rattlesnake I took from a pot that was a really old one that was found in Arkansas, and it is it has wings. It has it's a rattlesnake body with a panther head and a comb that looks a lot like maybe a chicken, but it's the winged. And the composite of that animal, I think, is found throughout the Southeast the Southeast, their forms of decoration, and also in the Southwest. And I think one of the books that they handed out was Serpent. I'm not certain, they call it Two Serpents or Twin Serpents. The other piece is a tripod that I made in, say, honoring the state of Oklahoma, their celebration of 100 years, which wasn't really a celebration for us because that celebration meant that we lost the land. We lost the land because of the political intentions of, I guess, the United States to take over, the state of Oklahoma. So we did lose that. But when I made this piece for this particular exhibition, I thought about the three things that are really important to the Caddo, and those are our dances and songs. And our scalp dance is victory dance is our turkey dance, and so that's very ceremonial to us. And the women are the ones who dance it, and then the men come in later. And also the other one is the drum dance, which tells Caddo history, and that one we do after we eat in the evening, and then we perform the drum dance, tells Caddo history. And then the third one And then we have a lot of social dances throughout the night. The alligator dance, the bear dance, the duck dance, the swing dance, the stirrup dance. And these are all social fun dances, really bringing laughter, community, joy, and, inspiration to all of us. So I always feel wonderful when I can participate in Caddo dances. And then the last dance that we have is at the break of dawn. We have the morning dance. And the morning dance is greeting the day. And it's like a celebration, almost like we have danced all night. Well, which we did, dance all night and celebrate the morning. So I call it that. This piece is in the Smithsonian, and it's Hasine twins, and it is like a symbol that was found on a shell from Spiral Mounds, and I put it on my pottery. But the Caddo the creation story has to do with hero twins. Hasine twins is what I called it, but and there's 2 or 3 stories about that. And this one I did as a commission. And there's one of my pieces is a tripod it's on display at the National Museum of the American Indian, and the other one is a tripod, it's a red one, and it's at the Arkansas Historic Museum. And finally, my journey in this is just like, this has been my passion, and I think it helped me find myself. And like all of the people who have talked, I hope it inspires, what you're doing. And my project is basically, so this would be like a Hodges engraved, and it belongs to the National Museum of the American Indian. But my project is to change Hodges engraved to culturally relevant names for our pottery. And I have called this one Nacogdoches engraved. In this one I named it Intertwining Scrolls, but the names such as Maxie noted, Smithport, Hodges, what else? Smithport. They don't have any meaning for Caddos. These are archaeological ways of naming, and which you have to respect, because you have to keep track of what's happening, of where things come from. So I made my presentation to the I think at Caddo Festival this past April. And our chairman of the tribe and vice chairman were there, and so they gave the go-ahead for the project. And so now, just finding the time, and I think the people are really, really, they're excited about it. And it's not that many people that I have contacted, but I'm trying to find a format, a way, to reach people. What would you call this? Nacogdoches could be one, or it could be one of the chiefs, or it could be Hattanu. Different Caddo names that would mean something to us. So that's where I am on my project, and I guess when I talked with Diana Folsom, we had a wonderful conversation about this, and so she was able to turn this into a very useful grant that I'm just very pleased to be a part of. And so I'll turn this back over to Diana.
you can see what an honor it is to work on this project, can't you? So I'm so glad to get to see her work. Although she said she's got the tiger by the tail, she now has this big idea, big project ahead of her that she's begun to rename. And we're going to actually, it was decided during the Caddo Festival, the tribal members understood that there's still a need for the archaeological terms as well because they've been used for so long. So in addition, we're going to add it won't have to be an either or at this point, but in addition, we'll add new culturally relevant object names for these types of ceramic vessels.
My name is Ann Early, and I'm the Arkansas State Archeologist, but more relevant to this is that I work for a branch of the University of Arkansas called the Arkansas Archeological Survey, and I've been doing research in Arkansas since the 1970s. I was a very young child. And one of my specialties is ceramics. I worked for 20 years in the Caddo region, but now I'm the state archaeologist and my concerns are statewide. And among my role is to oversee our databases, our records management, and our collection management. And I have been working on this project for almost a year, just. Diana asked me and my colleague George Sabo to comment on the beta version, as she showed you, of the database as things were populated. And so I spend about between 5 and 10 hours a week, a slice of time, in the digital world, reviewing pottery vessels and offering suggestions for updating information on the type, the age of the vessel, the way you describe it. And I'm also doing something that is, I think, of importance to all of us. And this is linking the Lemley collection with our statewide centralized database of almost 50,000 archaeological sites. I'll show you some pictures of some of the data I use. But let me give you just a little bit of a background about the collection. Harry J. Lemley, was a circuit judge who lived in southwest Arkansas in the early part of the 20th century. Mr. Lemley, Judge Lemley, decided he was going to make a collection, a comprehensive collection of representative artifacts from all of prehistoric Arkansas. And so while he lived in southwest Arkansas and had an affinity for the pre-contact Caddo ancestral remains, he collected from all parts of Arkansas. And he did this up through the 1950s when he became a federal judge, and he sold his collection, which I don't know that we know how many objects are in it. I estimate between 20 and 30,000 things, including about 2,500 vessels, to Thomas Gilcrease. And Mr. Gilcrease took the collection to Oklahoma, and it never came back. So I am interested in the sites and the history and the heritage of Arkansas. In 1971, when my agency was in its infancy, our photographer went to Gilcrease and took black and white photographs of all of the pottery vessels and copied his catalogs. One of the things that makes this man stand out, even from professionals of his day, was that he kept a meticulous, comprehensive, immensely detailed catalog of every object that ever came into his possession. And so we have information there about precise provenience of the objects. And this is a page of his typed pottery catalog. I don't know if you can see any of the words for it, but you can see the volume of information. And say the large paragraph here describes one set of objects that were collected in the specific site location. From my viewpoint as both a scholar and also someone who works both with the native descendants of people who used to live in Arkansas, is that this information offers us an unprecedented opportunity to link the artifacts in Oklahoma with the archaeological site database in Arkansas. And this upgrades and provides new information both to the Gilcrease as to where exactly the objects came from, because the catalog doesn't have the modern information in it, but our database does. And the new database will have links to the archaeological site information. We in Arkansas, in turn, both people interested in repatriation and scholars interested in the archaeological heritage, will be able to add the new information about the Lemley collection to what we know about these archaeological sites. Our database contains a potential for over 100 data fields for each archaeological site in the database. And it is linked to additional GIS data layers and other data including radiocarbon dates, photographic archives, and so forth. So by adding the opportunity to look at the Gilcrease collection and see precisely within a couple of 100 years the kind and age of the objects in the collection and link those to our archaeological sites, we can provide a much more refined inventory of the cultural affiliation and the age of the sites that are then used for research, public education, and so forth. So, for the last year, I sit at the computer with a library table piled with relevant information, some of which I wrote myself, some of which are the dissertations and published monographs and other resources that provide more recent information about Arkansas ceramics and sites that have yielded them. As Jeri was saying, many of the pottery vessels in the Lemley collection are actually famous, although they are kind of not known by the world. This is a 1950s produced standard pottery typology that is used by all scholars in the Caddo area. Unfortunately, it was done in the early 1950s, but it's the first iteration of some of the type names and the criteria for belonging to one type or another. And the checked items in here are in the Lemley collection. So these are like in a biological archive or in an herbarium. These are the type items among the limited type items for the original typology. This is the narrative that's connected to that plate for the type Foster trailed in size. Now, a lot of research has been done. We know more about the age and the cultural distribution and the specifics of the parameters of types and varieties. So I'm upgrading some of this information in the beta version. To date, I have looked at a little over 1,735 of these 3,200 objects.
And I will say that it's very detailed information, paragraphs, it's fantastic.
And what I typically offer is a more refined estimate of the age. I can get down to about 200-year window for the age of these vessels as opposed to 1,000 years, based on not just my work, but the shoulders of many, many, many people who've done work over the last 70 years. And also the most recent published type identification. I don't do new research, I don't offer new type names, and I don't use information that is gossip among archaeologists but has never been put down on paper. So that anyone will be able to see these if they have access, and then go back to the publication and see if I'm right or not, which I am mostly for a lot of this. So I've been doing this for 45 years. So I've visited with a lot of these pots for decades. And I'm very honored and thrilled to have the opportunity to upgrade all of this wonderful information, both for our public and our research and our partners, both at the Gilcrease and beyond. I have another year to go. I do about an hour a day And on a good day, I can look at the photographs for 10 vessels and either out of my head or my lists offer the update right away. On a bad day, I have to go down the hall to the database and root around for information or find publications. I have pretty good visual memory, so I can look at a vessel and I say, I've seen that one before somewhere. I know I have.
I'll just
And then I
mention,
go find the publication, then, okay, it's that age, and somebody else is identified, and so forth, so I can plug that information.
I'll just mention
I'm
for-
learning a lot, and I'm
Yes.
giving them all kinds of strange
It's fantastic.
information.
But for I see Sandra here, we're not going to shut them down when this grant ends. She's going to keep going, just so you know.
I'm going to finish.
She's going to finish.
I am going to finish this. And I'm also offering, in the narrative section, you could go ahead and put up another
Yes.
one of these.
Great. Whoops.
Oh,
Excuse me.
there, go back there.
Right
And in the narrative section, I'm offering, for the last decade, we in Arkansas, my colleagues and I have been working on a number of large projects, one of which was documentation of 1,000 pottery vessels that came from the Cardin Bottoms area of central Arkansas in the 1920s. And we went to the NMAI and documented 300 vessels there. We went to Gilcrease and documented 300 more, and then 300 and 400 in our own thing. And so over the years, we've developed a standardized documentation form, standardized set of measurements, and a standardized glossary of words, so that I am using that as my base, so that all of the offering I can make are standardized from vessel to vessel and type to type. And there will not be as much in the way of idiosyncratic terminology. Thus far, I have, in reviewing catalog information, I can link 95% of the 1,735 vessels to our known sites. So there's only a tiny number of vessels where at this moment in time, the catalog information is not quite precise enough for me to know where on the ground this object came from. But with a little new research, especially, if I had a graduate student to send out to the county courthouse and say, don't come back until you know where that farm was, we can link these others. So I feel pretty good about that, and I suspect that percentage will continue to the end of the project. I've identified 127 different named types in the 1700s so far, and have identified, as I say, 80 sites in our database to which these belong. So these are not anonymous objects of prehistory anymore. They can be established. These are site names and our site codes for one of the pages that I've got done so far. And I have to keep this written next to me. That helps me go faster. When I see a new name, I can look it up. I don't have to go down the hall and get it out of the archives. Here are the archaeological type names, along with the age estimates. We have, after 50 years of research, the capacity to narrow the age estimate at which the pottery was made, either that individual vessel or the type, to 100 or 200 years, refining the chronology of Native history in Arkansas, and hopefully identifying some periods of Native history that overlap with the first appearance of Europeans. So this is my master list that I also refer to as I go on. This is my glossary, and it's 7 pages long, and it gives, I found one thing that's hard for people to do is to be comfortable with the vocabulary of 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional geometric figures. So not assigning culturally loaded names to vessel shapes, but trying to stay within formal shaped categories to describe things in ways that other people can understand what you're saying. And these are just, this is the glossary we use and we pass out and have our students and other scholars using as well. So there will be a standardization here, the options for rim shape, rim angle, body shape, base shape, and so forth, none of which we hope are culturally loaded, so that other areas of interest that have to do with design are not tangled up in some kind of cultural affiliation linked to the shape, for instance. So that is what I am doing. One last thing I will say is I have this loyal undergraduate volunteer student who comes in 6 days a week for a couple hours. And so someday she will sit at my shoulder and I will look at the things and dictate what I see, and she will scribble madly on the forms, and I will type the information into the comments section and send it off to them. And on those days I get to do 15 on a slice of time instead of 10. And so it's very exciting for both of us to do that, and she's a great help. So I'll entertain any questions, possibly. It's been educational for me. Even after 40 years of working with this material, I'm seeing new objects that I did not work with in the 70s and 80s and 90s with the black and white photos. And so it has helped me in my job. And I think when we're done, it will improve our master database that's used by tribes and nations and managers as well as us. And I will make, I think, the database at Gilcrease more usable so that people will be able to find groups of objects from the same site rather than not have that information because it's not available in the old catalog. Now, a word of obvious caution, if you've read this, the catalog itself has very sensitive information in it. And so, particular local information about where the sites are, especially those where it says the objects came from graves, will not be part of what will be available to the public so that we can protect those sites. This is one of the big missions. The survey has to protect the landowners and the sites and the cemetery areas that are out there. So this will be available to, I'm sure, some people for some purposes, but will not be a source of endangerment to the sites themselves, most of which we hope still exist, but that's another project to find out.
And I'd like to introduce Dr. Holly Witchey, who has been our cataloging advisor.
Hi, my name is Holly Witchey. I'm faculty in the Advanced Academic Program in Museum Studies at Johns Hopkins University, and I'm also adjunct faculty at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Department of Art History and Art, where I teach traditional museum studies in the classroom. But I'm here today to talk to you about an exciting project at the Gilcrease Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Diana Folsom invited me to be a participant in an IMLS-funded project entitled Native Artists and Scholars Bring Past to Present, Multi-Disciplinary Perspectives for Mississippian Culture Pottery. At first glance, the project was exciting and straightforward. My job was to help implement change and to enable conversations. What I was completely unprepared for is how much the project changed me. The Gilcrease project is exciting because it offers opportunities to leverage information at a networked level. When archives, libraries, and museums work together to provide access across collections, it can be transformative for the staff, the visitors, the viewers, and the researchers. The Gilcrease project added artists and archaeologists to the mix, invited them in to play an active role in the cataloging. Now the transformation took on a new and arguably higher purpose. My job as an advisor to the project was to encourage conversations to reassure project members that Native American tags can and should successfully coexist with and inform the archaeological cataloging. Cataloging as we know it today in the United States is primarily a Western European and specifically a Victorian invention, although there have been cataloging systems around for as long as people have been collecting things. This demand to label and categorize and put things into baskets so they can be found and retrieved is particularly Victorian, however. When cataloging, we try to put things in bins individually so we can find them and we can retrieve them, rather than looking at where the thing fits in the universe of things. And in doing so, in privileging one voice, we lose our sense of continuity and contiguousness, and the object loses a sense of continuity and contiguousness. We want to look at things like, where is the artifact touched? How is it touched? Who touches it? We need to place objects in a history of stories, messages, lessons. There are shapes and symbols, fine spots, all may share a number of ideas. There's a visual language of a vessel or artifact. There's shape, decoration, and color. There may be meaning in positive space. There may be meaning in negative space. At the heart of this notion is communities, though. There's communities that surround objects. The unanticipated outcome of the Gilcrease project is the acknowledgement that there is a multiplicity, in fact, a universe of perspectives that surround, embrace, and transcend the object. What if this is a precursor to a new method of cataloging? This is intriguing to me, as part of the way to repair depredations of the past is by diversifying the future. This could become a new standard. You could have archaeological cataloging and Native American cataloging. They serve two different purposes, but one is not at the expense of the other. And maybe there's a third, or a fourth, or a ninth, or a 10th layer of cataloging as well. I believe this multi-dimensional cataloging can become the new norm, with Native American tribes at the heart of the process. On one of the evenings at ATALM, I went to the Indigenous Sky program, and I heard Walter Echohawk's moving rendition of the Pawnee cosmological origin myths. I heard Dr. Mamaday's reflections, but what struck me most was the final moments of David Begay's and Nancy Mariboy's sharing the skies. In those final moments, the stars and the skies disappeared, and there was a Navajo basket that replaced the sky. The basket is the universe, and it contains everything. And as I was watching those final moments, the thought that came to me is cataloging, in its essence, is ultimately not about finding the objects, but it's about finding ourselves when we view and experience the objects. And so those are the thoughts that I have that I wanted to share with you all who couldn't attend ATALM's 2017. I hope if you're seeing this, you'll take every opportunity to go to ATALM 2018, because it is a remarkable event full of remarkable people, and I was honored to be a part of it this year. Thank you.